You're listening to Money in the Hands of Conscious Women podcast. In this show, I show you how women all over the world manifest money in their life and create more impact. We talk about financial equality, magnetizing more money and abundance, expansion, building empires, destroying codependency. We also talk about building authentic, blissful relationships as ambitious women. We speak about real empowerment, expansive living, and of course, normalizing money in the hands of conscious women. We redefine feminine wealth, and we also claim the creation of conscious legacy. I'm interviewing women who have mastered and harnessed the energy of money in a conscious way. As an entrepreneur with more than a decade of experience in business and leadership mentoring, I have helped thousands of women to claim their financial freedom without sacrificing their mental health. I have done it myself, and so can you. Hello, beautiful. I am so happy and excited to have you for another conversation as part of Money in the Hands of Conscious Women podcast. And today, I have an amazing guest. Amy is with me. Amy is such an amazing expert, and we will be focusing today on the topic of your mental health, burnout, and how to stay nourished and juicy and feeling good as a very ambitious and successful woman. But without any further delay, Amy, I know that normally in podcasts, people don't do a good job with that. So please introduce yourself.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. I'm just so excited to be here and have this conversation. We have some juicy stuff for you today on the topic of burnout and just how to really deeply nourish yourself. So my background is in functional holistic nutrition and nervous system health. And I created what I call vitality coaching over the last few years after working with women and them just hitting roadblocks by only addressing the food piece. And so as I dove deeper in, I really began to understand how everything that's going on in the body, so every symptom, every sensation, is really your body saying how she is experiencing your life. Wow. And as I really began to understand that that's what's showing up and that's how it's coming through, that we could actually work from the whole life and truly the whole woman in order for her body to complete the healing cycles that they are in through the symptoms. And as I began to do that, and the power that was really given back to these women to really understand their bodies and be at home and not be so afraid when things were happening and feeling like they had no control, they really started to partner with and create a relationship with themselves. And that, of course, just transforms everything.
So, Amy, the reason why I invited you here is because you are such an amazing expert on the topic of burnout and specifically with women. And we are seeing now more and more women feeling that they're burning out. And there's a lot of reasons for that. Obviously, we are very fastly moving into a pace which is not normal for women. Especially women building businesses. I think that this is something quite new for our nervous system and our evolution, especially when you've spent thousands of years not being in that position. But first, let's speak about what are the first symptoms to identify. I love how I'm like disappearing.
You're going in and out.
I am, yes. This like I'm in the unseen and the seen, but this is what happens when you travel. So for those of you who are listening and not seeing, I'm basically traveling right now. So I have a fake background on Zoom because I'm obsessed with keeping consistency on my videos. So I'm just disappearing. Amy, you just see parts of me. Anyways, going back, and this is not funny because we see so many women either on the edge of burning out, or they already are burning out. They're burned out like 5 years ago and they don't know it, and they're just running on energy and adrenaline. So how do we identify what are the first symptoms then, and we can prevent this from happening?
Yeah. So there are so many ways it shows up, which is one of the reasons why it can be so challenging for women to realize that this is what's going on. For one woman, it may just start, it's just a little bit of fatigue. Like they just don't feel like they quite have the energy they used to have, but it's so kind of nuanced and small. They just think, well, I'm just busy, and that's just part of being busy. Or of course, the old adage, I'm getting older and that's just part of getting older, which is a totally different conversation, but that's not the truth. So it's some like little fatigue, brain fog. Maybe they're having trouble remembering things, keeping up with the schedule that they've normally kept up with. Of course, changes in your menstrual cycle are huge. That is definitely a sign that something's going on. Your menstrual cycle is such a key component of the status of your health that if you're having changes there, whether it's in the regulation of it, if it's in, how your ovulation cycle feels in your body, if you're getting a lot of swelling and things like that, or going into your menses, if you're having a lot more PMS, that right there is a very good indication, especially of course for women, in that if you are operating outside of the natural essence of the feminine body, the woman's body, your menstrual cycle is going to be one of the first places it shows up. So in those hormone things. And of course, we think it's just a hormone problem. And it's not a hormone problem. It's the hormones making an adaptation to the pace of life you're living to try to change in order to keep up. And of course, it's not going to do that. It's just going to tell you this isn't working. So that's a very important place to look at. If you're not used to tracking your cycle, and even tracking your cycle along with your business, which is huge and can be so supportive of how you schedule your life.
Agree.
Like, yes, like it is a game changer in your business to know what's going on with your cycle week to week, because men are so brilliant at being able to build a business like at the same pace every single day. And we are not designed that way. We are designed to be different every single week based on the fluctuations within our body. And those are there for very specific reasons. And so if you can start to look at your cycle first, that will definitely start to show you how things are feeling for you. And then, of course, the fatigue, the not sleeping well, if you're having some insomnia, if you're waking up in the middle of the night, say around 2 or 3 o'clock, that's a sign that, blood sugar regulation, all these things are wonky in your body. Again, it's trying to adjust in order to keep you functional. No. We love to think that it's always our spiritual guides waking us up between 2 and 3 every day.
Yeah, I woke up at 3 a.m. It's my spiritual guides. And I'm like, girl, no. No, that's your body saying what you're doing through the day is telling her to wake you up in the middle of the night because she wants you to change something. She's saying, this isn't working. I actually would love for you to sleep all night long and feel rested and rejuvenated and good in the morning. Sleep is such a critical piece of the puzzle. And so she's not waking you up to give you spiritual downloads every single time. She's waking you up to say, hey, I just had to take a bunch of glucose to your brain to keep you going and keep everything flowing in your body. So your menstrual cycle, your sleep cycles, your circadian cycle, your 24-hour cycle, those are really amazing places to look and notice the subtle changes, because oftentimes it's not going to be just this big thing. If you get to the big thing, you've already been in the process of burnout for quite a while, because big things don't just happen overnight. Like if you get a diagnosis of something, that doesn't happen overnight. The environmental effects have been in play for often several years before the big thing comes forward. So if it's a big thing, it's already been there. So you want to actually start paying attention to the nuanced things and what's happening, in your moment to moment, in your day to day, in your week to week. How are you actually feeling? And being very, very honest with yourself about it, and not just glossing over something that doesn't feel right, even though it seems insignificant. And I think that's one of the biggest things that we do, is because it's something small that we're like, oh, it's fine. It's not a big deal. Like the fatigue thing. You start maybe getting tired in the afternoons, and you didn't used to do that, and you're really wanting to nap. And there's nothing wrong with naps. We love them. And at the same time,
If it's a cyclical thing, then your body is giving you a clue that
Mm-hmm.
something's going on that actually needs to be changed. But it
Mm-hmm.
can be so slight that you think that it's not a big deal. And it's just the beginning whispers that your body is giving you. And we don't want to get you to the 2x4, because the 2x4 is not fun. That's
Mm-hmm.
going to take you down. That's going to, put halts in your business and in other things that you're doing in your life. And we don't
Mm-hmm.
want you to get there. And in order for that not to happen, you have to start listening every day.
Yes. So checking your period, making sure that you have a regular period.
Yes.
So if you're not checking your period, I don't know what you're doing, but you should start doing that definitely. The second thing is
Yes.
sleeping patterns. So when you notice waking up at 3 a.m., it's not your spiritual guides, it's your body trying to tell you that there is something off there. Sleeping is a big thing for me. That's one thing I don't like sacrificing, and a lot of people laugh at me when I say that. Listen, my beauty sleep, I don't sacrifice it, but it's also for other purposes to stay healthy and feel good. And I also want to validate something that you said, which was brilliant, to sync your business with your period. And we can actually speak about that before we jump and continue the conversation about burnout. If you want to do that, since you brought it up, because it's genius. I'm on my period today. Also, sorry for everybody for the too much information, but I was bragging the last 1 year that my biggest flexes in my business is that I managed to sync my business with my period. And it took me a lot of time because I will normally do it and then my period will come 2, 3 days earlier. And I'll be like, now I haven't planned it like that. I gave you time in this time frame. And now, so normally my period comes earlier. But this time it came later, a couple of days. So I thought it's actually going to come last week. But also, I've been flying a lot, which is another thing. Let's just clear that your period can change because a lot of things, just because you change once or twice, it doesn't mean that it's burnout necessarily.
Yes.
But why is it so important? And you also mentioned the fact that men are very different when they build their business. What happens during these 4 weeks that you have? Let's just say 4 or less than 4 weeks, um, with your body, and why is it so important to sync your period with your schedule, especially when you're a businesswoman, because you actually have the flexibility. That was one of the reasons why I quit my job, by the way. That was one of the things. I was like, if you're not giving me days off on my period days, I'm out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. And I love that you shared, where you're at in your cycle, because we really do want it to be just a natural conversation. This is
Yes.
something that we all have every single month. It's a natural part of our, physiology.
Mm-hmm.
So it's going to happen. And
Yes.
even if you no longer have a menses for whatever
Yeah.
reason, whether you're past, menopause or you've had a hysterectomy,
Mm-hmm.
you are still cyclical. So you are still
Mm.
in a 30-day approximate cycle.
Wow.
You can look at it through like the moon cycles, just to make it
Mm-hmm.
super simple, because they're just points. You
Right.
don't need to do any like moon stuff with it if that's not what you're about, but it's just points on the calendar to help you. So
Mm-hmm.
see kind of how you feel at new moon and see how you feel at full moon, and that will give you an idea of what's going on in your own specific cycle. So
Mm-hmm.
it's still relevant for you even if you don't have a menses. So
Mm-hmm.
but I love the fact that you brought up where you're at, because we do
Mm-hmm.
want to make it a natural conversation. And especially as
Absolutely.
women building businesses, we
Mm-hmm.
need it to be a natural part of the conversation, because
Mm-hmm.
otherwise we ignore, again, our best signal of the body to say how we are actually feeling.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Mm-hmm.
in the course of, let's just say, approximately 4 weeks, it's usually 28 to 35 days is the average cycle for a woman.
Mm-hmm.
So, we have 4 different phases, and this is actually called our infradian rhythm. So, you have
Mm-hmm.
your 24-hour circadian, and then you have your monthly infradian. I think it's INFRADIAN. If you want more information on that, a really great book is called In the Flow by Elisa Vitti. It's absolutely phenomenal to walk you through the process of
Mm-hmm.
understanding what that means even more in depth. So it's a
Mm-hmm.
fabulous resource. So we have 4 different phases. Some people start with menstrual cycle as the beginning, and some people start with menstrual cycle as the end of their phase. I always just tell people, whatever feels most natural to you. If you feel like it's the beginning of your month, use it as a beginning. If you feel like it's the end, use it as your end. Like it's completely okay for you to kind of individualize that. So we have our follicular phase first. We'll use that as the first stage. So that's like the first part of your cycle where your estrogen is going up and your progesterone is staying down here. So you can I think of estrogen as like the extroverted hormone. So it's kind of the energizing hormone. So we're extroverted, we want to be out and talking to people and building things and maybe creating a bunch of new content, or maybe creating new platforms or creating new programs, whatever it is. It's a very creation time. So it's kind of like externally energy pushing out during that time. So that's in the first part. Then you go into your ovulation. So ovulation, of course, is you're just like juicy and plump and ripe and, getting ready to be impregnated basically with the next thing that it is for you to birth. So it's that really juicy, alive place. And for some women, that place feels horrible. Like they don't feel well there. So that's a sign for you of, where you're at in your cycle. Then we go into the luteal phase. So this is like the tapering now. So you've like reached your peak with estrogen, and now we're tapering the estrogen off and your progesterone is coming up. So I think of the progesterone as like the softening hormone. So it's like softer and silky and smooth, and it's kind of that kind of feeling where you're softening in. You may be slowing down a little bit in this place, which we tend to think of as this awful thing when we're building a business. Like, I can't slow down. No, I have to keep that momentum going, 24/7. And our bodies just aren't designed to stay there. It doesn't mean your business needs to taper or slow. It means during that time, there's other things for you to focus on that are not push, 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 go, 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 as it's easier in the first half of your cycle. So it does, like you said, it takes time to look at this. It's over several months. I tell women to give themselves 6 months to a year to really get the full depth and breadth of what their cycle looks like. You can't do it in a month or two, because you might have a month where you're traveling and it's all kind of wonky, and that's just the way it is. So then when you go into menstruation, that's when your both of your hormones are kind of at their lowest. So estrogen and progesterone, everything's just kind of come down into this kind of like stillness point, and you're purging and you're releasing and you're moving things out of the body. So this is definitely much more of an internal time. The first half is your external time. This is more internal. So this is that introspective time that, how am I feeling about things in my business, what's going on, what feels good, what doesn't. There's just a different access point for you physically during that part of your cycle, because you're releasing so much kind of old energy out for the new energy to come in the next, as you start your cycle again. So it's a really great time to just reflect a bit on how your last month felt, what were things looking like, whether it's in your personal life or your business, and making some decisions based off of that stillness point where you're not in the high, go, because you just have a different access to your intuition during that time.
Brilliant. Absolutely. And again, I definitely validate that. I've experienced that with myself. That was one of the things that I committed to the entire 2022, because I thought this is the real flex. I thought, wow, if I can do this, this is incredible, because I feel that this is such an important time. And it is something that makes us being women. And just to open one bracket, if you don't understand that, I don't know if you've noticed in the morning as women, you are slower and you just want to cuddle in bed, and you're like, don't play music too loud, and you're just like, oh, you're stretching, and he's like up. He's in the bathroom making all the sounds. He's already like making the coffee. He's up, he's done, he's hard. And sometimes my ex-partner, he couldn't get that. I was like, because he knows how I'm aggressive. Like, I'm up, my energy is over the roof. But when I wake up in the morning, I'm not like the slow, but I'm like, okay, flowy, let's get up, easy, nice and slow. And he couldn't get it. He's like, you're such a beast. What's up with this? He's like, let's go. Don't stay in bed for like longer than 10 minutes. I don't stay like an hour, but I need time. That's because we're women. What happens in the morning? The guy gets an erection. The woman doesn't. Like, all the hormones are like all the way down, and his hormones are like, let's go. So same with your,
true.
You don't get a boner in the morning,
so true. Right? No. It's the last thing on your mind in the morning. You're just like, exactly like you said, you're stretching.
Yeah,
It's like cat stretches, snuggling in the covers. My honey will bring me coffee in bed while he's up and like getting ready because he knows I'm not going to get up immediately. I'm going to stay there for, 15,
exactly.
20 minutes and just
Yeah,
like, because that's just how I operate in the mornings. He can get up and
exactly.
go and he's out the door and I'm like, love you, more power to you. I'm going to take my
Testosterone.
time. Yeah.
Testosterone wakes up
Yeah.
5 a.m. in the morning and is ready to run the house, but not
Yep.
us.
It's ready to go. No.
Amy, let's talk about. So we spoke about how to identify when burnout is knocking on the door and how to prevent it. But do we need to get somebody to check us to tell us, yes, you have burnout? Like, what is the best practice to know that has happened? As you know, this is something that's becoming even a little bit trendy. So how do we know that we are really burned out and we need to take care of this situation?
Really, you can go and get, hormone testing and get cortisol testing. You
Mm-hmm.
can do all of that. And at the
Mm-hmm.
same time, how you feel is what matters most because you might go get all those tests and they come back and say you're fine. And
Right.
you're not. And so we don't want to use that. That can be then used as an invalidation factor for you to think it's just all in my head. And that's not what's
Right.
happening. If you
Mm-hmm.
feel something, it's real. You are
Mm-hmm.
really feeling it. And even if it's coming from thoughts you have, remember your thoughts are in the body, so every
Right.
thought you have is going to have a response in the body, whatever that is. So
Mm-hmm.
it may be based off of the thoughts that you're having or the trying to keep up with the pace, the mental pace of everything, and the body is still going to have to respond to that. So
Mm-hmm.
the best way for you to really know is to actually just take a look at how you're feeling for 30 days. Like track it,
Mm-hmm.
write it down, start making notes about how you're feeling and also the context of what's happening in your life on those days, because
Mm-hmm.
we're all going to have a day. We all have a day where we're just tired, we just want to curl up on the couch and watch Netflix all day and
Mm-hmm.
eat fabulous food. You're going to have a day like that. You really want to see how you're feeling. And if you're in burnout, you don't feel well. And that's really the reality. You're either in that, wired and tired where you just like are going and going and going and you're restless and you can't think, but you actually physically feel like you're 100 years old, like you can't really move, but your
Yeah.
mind is going so fast. And so there's this like push and pull, and it's
Mm-hmm.
like having your foot on the gas and the brake at the same time. And so we know it's just revving, revving, revving. It's also part of your 3 a.m. wake up because your system is revving, 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 but you also have the brake on. And so what we want to do is track that for about 30 days and see how you're really feeling. Like, what are the
Mm-hmm.
symptoms? And then again, what's going on in your life? Because what's going on in your life are the things you're going to have to change in order for the body to have a new response. So the body's responding to what's going on in your life right now. So we try to go and change the body without changing anything out here. And it doesn't work that way. We
Wow.
have to look
Yeah.
out here and say, what out here is driving the response here? And we begin here. And it may be that you have to move really, really slowly. Some
Mm-hmm.
women are going to be able to move faster because the body has her own pace. We want to, everything needs to happen really, really fast. We got to get back to business. We want my body to move really quickly. And she may not want to work like that. She may say, I actually need to soften and slow down. Again, it doesn't mean your business has to slow down in the process. It
Mm-hmm.
means that there may be things that you are doing that need to change, how you're approaching something, a system that you have in place that actually
Mm-hmm.
doesn't line up with your cycle, number one, and
Mm-hmm.
also doesn't line up with the natural pace that you have as a woman. We all
Mm-hmm.
have our own natural pace. Some have super high energy. Some have like that up and down, not in a roller coaster way. It's almost like a really nice wave. And then some are just a little bit are kind of down here and they'll have the up and then they'll come back down to a baseline and they'll come up. So you're going to have a different pace than other women. And you need to start understanding what that is. And that's why tracking your cycle also is so critical, because
Mm-hmm.
you begin to see your own ebbs and flows. And then you get to see again within the context of your life, is this
Mm-hmm.
natural? Is this part of my natural pace? Or is it being driven by things that I'm doing, thinking, or ways that I'm behaving? And so
Mm-hmm.
then we kind of begin to see the picture of what needs to be adjusted in the life in order for the body to not require giving you that response anymore.
Mm-hmm. And you mentioned it beautifully when you said that we often try to fix the body somehow. which is great, as you mentioned, regulating the nervous system, but also the surrounding is affecting us a lot. But when we start feeling this way, what are some of the practices that you use with your clients that you can see, besides making the right decisions and breaking up with that person or firing that person? Okay, these are a little bit too much,
Yes.
but yes, the tough decisions. I think that, okay,
Mhm.
we can agree that the tough decisions, for me, making the tough decisions is the best self-care that you can do. But apart from that, what are
Mhm.
the other things that you do with your clients to get them balanced?
Yeah. So I do a lot of the simple, boring stuff. So,
I
we've
love
got like
them.
the big decisions and all that, but I
Hmm.
do the simple, boring stuff because
Hmm.
we underestimate the power of those simple things, and we think
Yes.
that they're insignificant. But if you can take them to a place of mastery, like you taking, working with your cycle
Hmm.
for, until you felt like it really matched your business, that's
Hmm.
a mastery point. And it's a little tedious because you have to work at it, you have to pay
Hmm.
attention, and it's slow, and it's kind of a simple thing, you're just paying attention, but it's so impactful and so
Hmm.
potent when you do this. So
Hmm.
some of the things I have my women do, number one is what does their morning look like? Are they up and on a screen? If so, I get them outside immediately. Like, we're going to change this. You've got to get out into the morning sun. So morning sun in the
Okay.
eye, or morning light, the sun doesn't even need to be out, even
Or
though
like
the sun, you can't
a
see the
fake light,
sun.
these
Yes,
lights. Uh-huh.
exactly. So the sun is, and the natural light in the morning is not just about vitamin D and immune system. It signals your thyroid hormone. It signals your oh my gosh, melatonin for the evening. It signals when your other hormones are supposed to begin producing in the afternoon or in the morning. It signals your cortisol, signals the pineal gland. So you get all of these signals first thing in the morning as to what time of day it is. And if you go straight to looking at your phone or getting on a computer first thing in the morning without at least going outside to sit, to have some natural light in your eyes, even for 10 to
Hmm.
15 minutes, your
Okay.
body automatically thinks it's 12 in the afternoon. So that's the signal
Wow.
it gets. Yes, it's that big of a difference. And so you think about then when you would have the natural downturn in your energy. Well, of course you do, because you're telling your body that, it's now 12 o'clock, even though it's 8 in the morning. And now you're having a crash at like 2 in the afternoon because your body now thinks it's 8 at night. So
Huh.
it's a really significant change, and even just the exposure to light can start to change how your hormones work over the course of 30 days, over the course of your natural cycle. So I have them get outside in the morning, put their feet in the grass, touch a tree. If it's cold and snowy outside, go out and touch a tree, for at least a few minutes, and come back in,
Hmm.
because that's going to ground you into the natural frequency of the earth, which is what our body is most resonant with.
Hmm.
Because we're surrounded by technology all the time. We can't change that. This is the way that our world is. And we can also do things that allow our system to come down before we
Hmm.
start and go up into our day. So
Hmm.
morning light is really critical for me. Also looking at what time of day they are eating, again, based off of what's going on in their body. If they're in burnout, doing something like intermittent fasting where they're not eating till 12 or 1 in the afternoon is probably not going to be most beneficial for you or your hormones, because you're keeping your body in a stress state. Now, if you're healthy and thriving and intermittent fasting feels really good for you, keep doing what you're doing. This is for someone who's not in a good state.
Right.
We're going to want them to eat earlier because it's just too much of a stress state. And that is also going to contribute to, higher cortisol again. So you may have like that stubborn belly fat that's not moving. That's going to contribute to that. So we want you to actually eat a little bit earlier. What that
Hmm.
is fully dependent on the woman. It just depends on what her body is needing. So I
Hmm.
can't give you a yes or no on diet. It's
Hmm.
highly individualized. So morning sun and eating a little bit earlier are critical. And then, of course, looking at your light exposure throughout the day. How late are you on screens at night? Are you using some blue blockers or something like that? Again, these are just simple things that you can put into play that are going to have an impact on what you look like in the 24-hour and 30
Hmm.
day. And it's going to nourish your body in simple ways that are going to support you building the business that you're wanting to build without
Yes.
you continuing to tip off the ledge or be in that cycle of burnout. I had a woman that I worked with a few years back who she had a burnout every single month. Like every month she
Wow.
would crash for like 5 days. And so we had to completely review, like, what are you doing? The 25 days prior to that, that's always leading to this crash, and then sync that up with her menstrual cycle so that we could make some adjustments where she no longer had that happening. And it took some time. It took a few months, to get her, for her body to make that adjustment. Hormones will typically take anywhere from 4 to 6 months to really begin to be in a new cycle and out of the one that they were in currently. So those are some very, very simple things. And like you said, sleep. Sleep is
the biggest.
So it's a non-negotiable. It is.
No.
It's a non-negotiable. It's a non-negotiable.
5 a.m. club, I'm sorry, I can't come.
No. And it's not good for most women. Like we were talking about, like the ease that we get up in the morning and the natural kind of slowness. And again, slowness doesn't mean hours and hours. It could just be 30 minutes, but we're just not designed to operate that way. And so your sleep really needs to be one of the primary things. And that's why I pair it with the light, because the light matters for your sleep also. And so if you are sleeping all night long, how your energy through the day, of course, you all know is going to be different. The foods that you're going to choose to put in your body are going to be different. You're not going to be in that, blood sugar all over the place, hangry and not feeding yourself and grabbing for the first thing, that lights you up type of deal. You're not going to be making decisions from that. You're just going to be much more clear. So sleep is, one of the most overlooked things that you can really work on in mastery. If you were to do nothing else but focus on your sleep for the next 3 months, it will radically change how you feel.
I validate that 1,000%. Like, I'm a big sleep junkie. And the reason for that is because I have had lots of years of my life where I couldn't sleep. I'm a very light sleeper. And by the way, I found that this is based on your genes. So I didn't know that. And I did a DNA test, and it turns out that I am, like, my genes show that I'm a light sleeper. I didn't know that. It actually shows also when I need to wake up. And it's funny because I wake up at that time. So when I wake up at that time, I feel the best. It's 8 a.m. If I wake up before, even half an hour before that, I'm very tired. So 8 a.m. is not my time. It's not because I'm lazy or anything like that. Sorry, you can have me at 6 a.m. 5 a.m., not a single chance. If it's a quickie, maybe. But no, anything else is a hard no for me. At 5 a.m., no, thank you. I'm not coming. No, I'm not coming to that. So I definitely agree. I want to ask you, because you mentioned, what you do first thing in the morning. I know that a lot of people love drinking coffee first thing in the morning. And Amy, be careful not to break my heart, because I love drinking coffee on an empty stomach first thing in the morning with water.
So here's a really good tip for those of you who love, because I'm the same way. Like, I am a coffee lover. Like, I just love coffee. There's something, it's like a comfort food for me. I just love it. The smell of it, the first sip of it, like the whole, it's like an experience for me every